I mean, if we were to take, let's say, a classical liberal, if a classical liberal were to go and approach the church's teachings, it would hold in disdain most all of its teachings. It really would. And in fact, much of it's been very hostile towards classical liberalism. And a classical liberal could sit there and analyze what the popes have said through that grid. And say, well, I think that they were wrong because they didn't understand X, Y, and Z, which are based upon my presuppositions. They're based upon my assumptions about economics and how everything should work. But the problem here is that the socialists or the communists could do this is the exact same thing. They can say, well, you know, the popes really don't have authority over this issue. They might have authority, but not really competence. And if they have competence, it's not a full competence. And I don't have a responsibility to completely obey them. So, yeah, I know that they're very hostile, and in some ways, yeah, they flat out said that we're wrong and that we're evil. But, you know, they just didn't really understand. They could do it they would have the right, just as much as the classical liberal would, to invoke the idea that the church doesn't have competency, or that the church doesn't have supreme authority over the conscience and actions of the faithful in regards to these matters. So what I want to do, I'm going to go through, and I'm just going to quote a couple portions here that I quoted before, not all of them in their entirety, but a couple of them, and maybe kind of give my 2 cents worth once we're done. We'll go in the same order. You have Pope Pius X in Singulare Quantum, okay, which was mentioned actually by one of my friends here viewers on YouTube. But the Pope says this. He says, accordingly, we first of all declare that all Catholics, every Catholic, has a sacred and inviolable duty, both in public and in private, to obey and firmly adhere to and fearlessly profess the principles of the Christian truth enunciated by the teaching office of the Catholic Church. In particular, lest he be mistaken here, in particular, we mean those principles which our predecessor has most wisely laid down in the encyclical letter Rerum Novarum. So for anybody to go and question the principles, and to question what Rerum Novarum was doing, instead of publicly and privately adhering to those, and fearlessly professing those. See, there would be a difference between fearlessly professing and adhering, and criticizing and tossing to the wind because they don't believe it's authoritative. So there'd be a huge difference. You have Pope Pius X in Quadragesimo Anno, which is, that's one of my favorites. But anyways, he says this, that principle which Leo XIII so clearly established must be laid down at the outset, not at the end, at the outset. Namely, that there resides in us, the Roman Pontiffs, the right and duty to pronounce with supreme authority upon social and economic matters. To pronounce with supreme authority upon social and economic matters. Now that's a far cry from saying that it's kind of an advisory committee. Well, you don't really have to obey what they say. He goes on to say that they have the right and authority to bring under subjection not only the social order, but economic activities themselves. Okay, so here they are, saying that they're pronouncing with supreme authority. These are self-claims, okay? They're claiming this of themselves, this authority of the church, this authority of the Roman Pontiffs. But it's supreme authority over social and economic matters, and even over the social order and economic activities themselves. So it's not merely principles here, it's activities and order. Pope Pius XI, once again, to quote him, in Atheistic Communism, dealing with the atheistic communism, he says that Catholic Social Doctrine is equally removed from all extremes of error, okay, and all exaggerations of parties or systems which stem from error. it maintains, what the popes have said, this Catholic Social Doctrine maintains a constant equilibrium between truth and justice. Once again, it doesn't sound like something that has a potential or even a possibility of leading people into injustice. John the 23rd, he had some really amazing encyclicals, but one that I like in particular is Mother and Teacher, Mater et Magistra. Hopefully my Latin's not as pathetic as I think it is. But he goes on to say that when Catholics hear these things and they read these things from the popes, that there's a requirement of what he called loyal trust and filial obedience to what the church has said, the directives of the church. And in fact, he goes this far. He says, when the hierarchy has made a decision on any point, and this is all in context with Catholic social doctrine, when the hierarchy has made a decision on any point, Catholics are bound to obey their directives. This isn't just a matter of principle. Now it's a matter of directives. So we have principle and directives. We have the authority not only to talk about it in matters of principle, but in actual matters of activities. And when the popes make declarations, we don't have the right to sit there and try to hyperanalyze it or criticize it from any presupposition that would be hostile to it. Instead, we must derive our most basic assumptions from them. Going back to Quadragesimo Anno, he says this, and those who would seem to hold in little esteem this encyclical, which is Rerum Novarum, and its commemoration, which is Quadragesimo Anno, either blaspheme what they know not, or understand nothing of what they're only superficially acquainted with, or if they do understand, convict themselves formally of injustice and ingratitude. Now, I don't know how someone could read Quadragesimo Anno and Rerum Novarum and come away not believing its principles and its directives and everything else, and yet trying to say that for some reason they don't fall within the warnings or even the harsh criticism of Pope Pius XI. I don't understand. I mean, he specifically says if they understand it, if these Catholics understand what's being said in Quadragesimo Anno and in Rerum Novarum and what other popes would say would include the entirety of Catholic social doctrine, then they would convict themselves formally of injustice and ingratitude. Now, I'm not sure if that would require one to go to the confession box, but I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. Especially if they publicly do it. I mean, it's one thing to privately sit there and have maybe a reservation about something because you don't understand it. It's quite another thing to understand it and then openly say that they were either wrong or that you aren't under any obligation to trust and obey. And fearlessly profess. That's something altogether different. In conclusion, I think it would be most wise, most prudent, and most obedient to go to the encyclicals and rely upon them as the foundation upon which we build our social and economic theory. I don't think it's wise to evaluate what the popes have said by an outside standard. I think it is only wise to presuppose the authority that they claim for themselves, and that we ought to use them as the standard by which to evaluate other systems, whether it be socialism, whether it be communism, whether it be classical liberalism, whatever it may be, that we would critically analyze not only those systems, but we would critically analyze various specific instances and specific issues in light of what is being said here, not evaluating this in light of what is being said elsewhere. And I think that that's our responsibility as children of our mother, the Holy Church.